Naked bikes are a whole lot of fun. You have a lot of performance, very good ride and handling, all of this without really compromising on the ability to live with it on a daily basis comfortably. Now, an equivalent sport bike or a super sport will do a great deal on your back after a long ride. Now, the 125 to 200cc space has quite a few offerings, so does the 300 and above cc segment. But the 250cc segment, not so much. Now, Hero plans to shake things up with this, the all-new Xtreme 250R. Now, with this bike, Hero claims that it's the fastest in its segment from 0 to 60, 0 to 100, and even to its top speed. All of that with a very good ride and handling package. Now, have Hero managed to accomplish that, and should the competition be worried? That's exactly what I'm here to find out in this first ride review of the all-new Hero Xtreme 250R. But before we proceed, don't forget to like this video, share it with like-minded enthusiasts, and smash that bell icon to stay notified for all of our video drops. Now, the Xtreme 250R has really sharp, aggressive, menacing styling, everything that you'd hope for from a modern naked street fighter style of motorcycle. Now, those of you who remember, Hero had showcased the X-Ton 2.5R concept at the 2023 EICMA show. Now, this is a production version of it essentially. Hero have done a very, very good job of bringing a lot of the design philosophies and concept showcase on that bike to reality with this Xtreme 250R. Now, at the front, you have a nice sharp headlight setup with these raised DRL bars over here, and you have a nice short fender, and the diamond cut alloy wheels look really well, and that large 320mm pedal disc really fills the space very nicely. Now, for those of you who are into it, this has a nice golden upside down fork as well, and moving behind, in a typical Hero Xtreme fashion, you have these nice protruding sharp panels over here that have R written on them. And right above, you have this tank which is really tall, and when you sit on the bike, you get a sense that you're sitting inside it and not on top of the bike. And of course, you have your Trelli frame and that all new 250cc engine, nice and exposed in all of its glory. You have a nice short exhaust, so that's not really filling up a lot of the space. It's just right in terms of dimensions. It's similar looking to that on the Charisma 210, but of course it is different internally because of the new engine and all. Then you have that same aggressive styling for the wheels back here as well, and the tail section is very nice and neat. The tail light is very similar to that on the Charisma, but there's no number plate or anything over here. What Hero have done, in fact, is put it on the rear tire hugger. That makes the space look really nice and clean. In terms of the colors also, you have really nice funky colors. The graphics are really nice, everything that will appeal to the youth. And all in all, I feel like the styling is great because it's a nice compact motorcycle, but at the same time, when you're on it, you do get the sense that you're on a bigger bike. Now, let's talk about the engine of this motorcycle, which is one of the major stars of the show over here. Now, this is the all-new 250cc liquid-cooled DOHC 4-valve engine. It's good for around 29.5 bhp at 9,250 RPM and 25 Nm of torque at 7,250 RPM. Now, this was showcased with this bike and the 250 Charisma as well. This is the first time we're experiencing this engine, and it is quite impressive. In terms of refinement, I had a great time on this bike. Low revs, high revs, I really didn't feel many vibrations at all. Cruising along at highway speeds as well, the refinement levels were great. Very rarely, every now and then, I would feel a bit of buzz around the seat, but that's about it. And those were also very rare, very few and far in between. And really, the kind of vibes they weren't bothersome at all. In terms of performance, this does feel quite peppy. At 167.7 kilos, this is very light and very manageable, and that aids in making the engine feel peppier than it is. It's very nice. The power delivery is great. It's got a strong top end, but at the same time, Hero have made sure to not compromise the low and mid-range power as well, which means it's also very tractable. Now, this is not going to be as tractable as a classic motorcycle, but for the sort of motorcycle it is, it allows for very forgiving and very lazy riding on your end if you so choose to ride that way. But when you want to get on it, the motor has enough grunt in the top end to allow that as well. 4.5 to 5,000 RPM is very feel the surge of the brunt of the peak power come in and carry you along, and it goes on very nicely till the red line. Below that, performance is good. If you're in a higher gear and below 5,000 RPM, you don't need to reach to make a change for the gear. You can continue the same gear because the motor has enough grunt down low as well. Now, in terms of speeds, sitting on a highway, if you were to, 110 kmph is something you can do all day, and it has enough grunt left for making quick overtakes even after those speeds. And at 110, like I said, the engine is very refined. It's a very nice place to be. It's mated to a slip and assist clutch, which means the clutch action is fairly light and you don't get a lot of hopping under aggressive downshifting. Speaking of shifting, the gearbox is a 6-speed unit. It also has a slip and assist clutch, so clutch action is fairly light. And the gearbox, it's very tactile, it's very smooth. You shift through the gears very nicely. It's not at all clunky. You never miss a shift as well. And finding neutral is also not a task whatsoever. So all in all, in terms of performance, I can't really verify right now as to whether or not this is actually faster than its competition in the sprint from 0 to 60, 0 to 100 and the top speed. But what I can tell you is that this is an engaging motor and you will have a lot of fun with it. Now, of course, if you're a more experienced rider, this engine might not keep you as entertained, but if you're someone just upgrading from a 150 or 200cc, this is plenty of fun. Let's talk ride and handling. Now, underpinning this motorcycle is an all-new trellis frame that is suspended off of 43mm upside-down forks at the front and a gas-charged monorshock at the rear. Now, as far as interacting with the motorcycle is concerned, you have a very comfortable 806mm saddle height, and as you can see, I am flat-footing the bike very comfortably. Shorter riders will also have no problem sitting on this bike. That's also down to the fact that the torso section of the motorcycle is not very wide, which means your legs are not splaying out, so the reach to the ground is a lot more natural and comfortable. The foot pegs are in a slightly rear set position. You have a kink in the legs, as you can see, but this is not uncomfortable. Even riding for longer periods, you will be comfortable. You're reaching out to a nice and wide handlebar. This gives you a lot of leverage over the motorcycle, and the best part is that this bike with a full tank of gas tips the scales at 167.7 kilos. Now, in terms of gas, this has a 11.5 litre fuel tank, which is a little less, but that shouldn't be a problem with the kind of motor that this has. Now, the suspension setup, like I said, is a 43mm upside down fork and a gas charged monoshock. Now, the suspension setup, it doesn't feel like the most sophisticated in its class. It does feel very busy when navigating bumps, ruts and all those things. When you pick up the speed, things do improve to a fair bit, but it's not as plush as some other bikes in the class. But at the same time, it is very supportive for sport riding. When you're in a corner, you do feel some of the mid-corner bumps, but it doesn't unsettle the bike completely. In terms of the handling, it's a very agile motorcycle. It's not very sharp and very agile, something like the 125R from the Xtreme lineup, but it is still plenty agile, and the fact that it weighs so less allows you to very nicely maneuver it through city and tight spots. The wide handlebar also aids the handling qualities of this motorcycle. In terms of riding hard, it really feels nice and natural. It flows through corners very well. It's very light on its feet and it loves to change directions very quickly. And even in the middle of a corner, it stays stable throughout unless there's a very sharp bump. Then the suspension feels like it can't really cope with that bump and it does unsettle the bike ever so slightly. But again, this is not worrisome. And the fact that it does get a 110 section front tire and a 150 section rear tire means you have a lot of options to choose from. Now, while the grip from the MRF Steel Brace X tires are pretty good, if your primary riding is going to be sporty, you're going to be taking it to the ghats a lot, or if you're going to be even taking it to the track often, I would suggest upgrading the tires. But like I said, because the 110-150 section, you have plenty of good tire options in the market, ones that will not break the bank as well. Now, overall, over the few hundred kilometers that we have ridden the bike today, it feels very nice. It's a very comfortable place to be. It's not too aggressive, but at the same time, when you do want to attack the corners, you have all the leverage you need from the motorcycle. The handlebar is nice. Your ergonomic setup is also very nice, and even someone like me with my girth and the height, I have enough place to move around and like really make the most of the entire space that this bike has. So all in all, it's a very good handler, and I keep coming back to that weight. It feels very light on its foot. Moving it around even while standstill is just effortless. Now, in terms of braking, you have a 320mm disc at the front with a twin piston bi-brake caliper, and at the rear you have a 230mm disc with a single piston caliper. Braking performance is solid, and like I said, because the suspension is a little soft, with the amount of bite that it does have, which I wish was a little more, it does dive a little, so I can understand why they haven't given it a sharper bite. But for all intents and purposes, the braking performance is great, and I really love the ABS calibration on this, because unless there's an undulation on the road which will cause the ABS system to trip over, the ABS doesn't really intervene no matter how hard you brake, and that is really great because it doesn't rob you of the feel when you're braking hard setting up for a corner, especially in a place where you know what the roads are like. You know you can brake a little later, but you would have to otherwise brake earlier because of the ABS system. That's not the case over here. Now this dual channel ABS system, it also has two modes. You have your regular mode and a track mode, and what track mode does essentially is disengage ABS at the rear, so you can slide it around, back it into a corner and all of that. And all in all, a very nice bike, a very tight package. The wheelbase also reflects just at the 1357mm wheelbase. It's a nice short bike. The rake is sub 24 degrees. It has a 86mm trail. So all in all, it has all the right numbers and figures for a properly engaging, sporty, naked motorcycle, and it feels exactly like that. It's just that the suspension could have had a slightly better tune in my opinion. Now in terms of features, you get a negatively lit LCD screen very similar to that of the Charisma, but this does show a few more things and the layout is slightly different. You also get an automatic headlamp, so basis the sun, it has a little sensor on the screen, so it will automatically switch on or switch off the headlight basis your riding condition. You have dual channel ABS like I told about, which is switchable at the rear, and you have all the connectivity features that you get on the other Hero motorcycles as well. Now apart from that, the price of this motorcycle is rupees 1.79 lakh, and that makes things very interesting because pay a little more and you have the NS400Z, and the 250 competitors, especially the Duke, is a lot more expensive. What you're getting over here is a very polished, very refined and a very sporty offering in the 250cc segment that doesn't feel dull or lethargic. So it is something you can genuinely upgrade to from a 125 or a 200 and be happy with it, as far as you're not looking for a very fast motorcycle or something that you're going to upskill on very quickly. As a chassis package, it's very potent. The engine is peppy enough to get going. Whether or not this is faster than its rivals is something I'm looking forward to finding out in a comparison test. But as it stands with this 1.79 lakh ex-showroom price tag, I feel this is a proper value for money proposition, one that excels on most fronts. It does everything that you expect of a naked straight fighter, and it looks very good while doing so. Now, what do you think about the Xtreme 250R, and would you pick it over its rivals? Do let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you for watching.